Welcome back to the final part of the 2021 Smark Out Moment Awards for the best and the worst of WWE of the year. We do have another part coming up after this that's not related to the WWE side of things, but we are rounding out our list here with the best and the worst wrestler awards. This is the last time that we're doing this as just the wrestler awards. And as I mentioned before, next year, we're going to be combining this with the on-air personality section, and that will just be all lumped together as performer awards, just the same as we did with AEW. So, it's the last time that you see just the word wrestler on your screen, I guess. I don't know. It's going to be the same graphics, most likely, or something. But we are going to keep these categories going into next year, and these are some of the best categories of the year to talk about. And we are going to break down the specific superstars. And as we've been doing here, we want you to tell us your thoughts in the comments below and tell us your picks, what your choices for best and worst on each of these categories. And we're just going to roll along here and start things off with the best and the worst newcomer of the year, which is a list of a bunch of different people here that a lot of them aren't even on the roster anymore because that's what happens in WWE these days. But if you go to the page on smarkoutmoment.com that lists the 2021 roster, you will see the distinctions of, for this and the other category that we're going to be talking about next, the main roster call-up. The wrestlers that are on there that are in italics are all new to WWE this year in some fashion. They were officially signed to the company in this year, or they had been signed on a previous year and they never actually debuted on television. There was somebody this year, I'm trying to find them on here. Somebody had been signed in like 2019 and they never actually debuted. I know Skylar Story was signed in 2020 and she never debuted, for instance. But it was Zechariah Smith was signed in 2020 and never debuted. It was Ezra Judge. He never debuted. Signed in 2019. 2 years goes by and they never showed him a single time on television as like an actual person. Maybe he was, in the crowd for Raw Underground or something, but I don't think that he's going to count as our best and worst newcomer kind of thing.
I mean, he's doing great over at MLW, but
is he really? Ezra Judge is there? Good for him.
Yep.
But yeah, we've got people like Ari Sterling, who showed up for the first time this year and got fired this year. Asher Hale, Giant Zangier, Trey Baxter, Top Dollar, B-Fab's part of that. Frankie Monet's part of that. Zeta Ramir. And then we have people that actually are brand new that haven't debuted yet. So I don't think that anybody can really constitute some of these names. Like, actually, you know what? That's one I have to change. Fallon Henley has debuted, but we haven't seen Simone Johnson yet. We still haven't seen who Sophia Cromwell is. Maybe we've seen her, but she just has a name change. So keep that all in mind, as well as the people that are along the lines that we actually know who they are, like Charlie Dempsey and Tony D'Angelo and whatnot. As far as best and worst newcomer, with the whole point that we're talking about here, I had two down for best in my mind, and I'm leaning more towards one than the other, although I think that might not be a thing until in a couple days from now. The two that I had written down previously were LA Knight and the one that I'm going to ultimately pick, Braun Breaker. I think that despite not actually winning the championship so far, he's going to win it on New Year's Evil, and that's just shy of winning it this year. And he did win War Games for his team. He has been prominently pushed from the very start, and he hasn't screwed up. So more than anybody, I think that is worthy of the best newcomer of the year. What do you guys have for best?
Braun Breaker. With a year that saw many people come and go, Breaker was the one guy that really stands out. Like, oh, he's going to be fun in a few years. Like, he's fun now. He's going to be even better in a few years.
Yeah, my choice was down to three people. I had Carmelo Hayes.
He's another option, yeah, for sure.
Meiko Satomura.
Yeah.
Because technically she did show up in NXT UK this year, so. And there's obviously climbed up to be the women's champion, and so he's doing a good job there, but I've got with Braun Breaker as well. Because realistically, and I know this is a big if, but if they don't fuck him up, then he really is the person that could beat Roman Reigns for the Universal title in a year or two.
I hadn't actually thought about it that way, but
I don't see anyone else who hasn't already been in some kind of main event position prior to it. Like, he's a guy who could actually come up and be a fresh face, just dominate people, and then beat Reigns for the title.
So I think Roman will probably lose the belt before then, but I think when it's time for Roman to pass the torch, it'll be to Braun Breaker.
more of a likelihood that that's going to happen than that it's going to happen with like Ru Feng, you know.
Well, to be honest, the likelihood is he's going to be called up and he put in a gimp mask, and then he'll be released in a couple of months.
That's true.
But that's like,
yeah. I do think he's getting called up this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to spend most of the year being NXT champion. He'll drop it, and he'll be called up, and then he'll win the Rumble next year.
I think that's a good prediction, yeah.
Bruce always tells the story that in the 93 Rumble, they wanted to just bring in Scott. As like, I never seen him on WWE TV, just bring in Scott Steiner, have him win the Rumble, and then win the belt at Mania. What are the odds that he's pitching that again, like, 20 plus years later? Come on, we got the chance, let's do it.
I don't think that it's happening this year, but I do think that he's going to be one of the main options for 2023's Royal Rumble. I think that's, I mean, who knows how this year's going to go, but some other people that I think are on the positives that are at least worth mentioning here that I didn't consider picking because they haven't achieved as much, but I do think Odyssey Jones has some good stuff to him. Ikemijiro's fun. He's not, the best of the best, but he's fun. There's positives when it comes to people like Zoe Stark and Ivy Nile, JC Jane and Gigi Dolan, or people that I enjoy. Cora Jade's fun. I think that if you're looking at somebody who is on the more successful path upward, Charlie Dempsey definitely is going somewhere. And yeah, Blair Davenport. I like Stevie Turner. I like Amelia McKenzie. There are positives for some different people here and there that are just worth like a little pat on the back. But let's talk about the negatives. And there's quite a few, unfortunately. Whether it's their performance themselves or just the way that things turned out or a combination of it. I had like 8 people on this list. I mentioned some of them already. Ari Sterling, Asher Hale, they just amounted to absolutely nothing. I don't think 9 out of 10 WWE fans could even tell you who they are because they were only mostly on 205 Live, so they really wouldn't care. There are people that still haven't gotten anywhere yet, like Ru Feng, who I don't even know if he's a babyface or a heel. There are people that I think are not so much showing off to me that I think that they're going to be much. Like, I don't see anything really particularly special about Malik Blade or so far nothing really about Bodie Hayward, but I'm willing to give them some leeway. The options that I mostly put this down to, and stop me, of course, if this is your pick, are threefold, unless I'm forgetting somebody. But one of them is Giant Zangier, because he only showed up once, wasn't really any good, and he got released. But I'm less willing to give it to him because it's like, well, I only saw him once. Shanky, who has popped up more than enough times by now that we know who he is, and we've kind of seen what he's got to offer, and it doesn't seem like it's all that much. He's tall. Okay. And the one that I am leaning a little bit more towards than anything else is Lash Legend.
All right. Well, look, all 3 of those names are on my short list. I don't want to crap on Lash Legend too hard. She is just starting, but it looks awful. It's not looking promising.
I don't like her mic skills, and I didn't like her matches. So she's working with almost nothing for me right now. She's got a good look to her, and she's got some personality, but
I do believe that it was New Year's Evil this year when Mei Ying surfaced, was it not?
Wendy Chu / Mei Ying, technically, yeah, is a... you could say Wendy Chu, even alone, but Mei Ying didn't actually appear until this year, yeah.
Yes, I'm going Mei Ying. That's what I thought. Mei Ying was going to be something special and then just fell off the face of the earth. So, Mei Ying.
Yeah, I have a few options. I have Shanky, of course, on my shortlist because, yeah, I don't know why they decided that. Well, even though you had was it a Sorov and
Rinku and Sarov, yeah.
So, yeah,
Rinku and
Rinku.
Sorov.
Well, now Veer
I don't know
Mahan.
why you had. Yeah, I don't know why you wanted to switch him with like Shanky. I don't know what Shanky offers that's any like an improvement on that.
He's
Supposedly, wasn't it like a visa issue with Sarov?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but I also think that Shanky is just 7 feet.
You can't teach that. Joe Gacy and Haaland. Just because I'm not a big fan of the gimmick of Joe Gacy. And Haaland it's too early to tell really, but again, the gimmick doesn't. A guy who was brought in and a lot of people hyped up because he looked a lot like Brock Lesnar, and then decided, yeah, we can't have you look like Brock Lesnar anymore, so we're going to make you an incel. And
Jesus Christ.
the worst one is the one that I'm kind of just like disappointed in because not so much for the performer themselves, but for what just the company has done with it, and basically a lot of it just being out of their control. I've gone with Sarai.
Didn't see that one coming.
It's just because I don't think that she's inherently bad in the ring or anything like that. Just that she came in and you just assume. I don't want to go so assume, but there is a history in NXT of Japanese women's wrestlers coming in with reasonably good reputations from their work in Japan, whether it's like with Stardom or Tokyo DDT or whatever, like Asuka and Kairi Sane and Io Shirai coming in and then them being not so much like immediately pushed, but given prominent spots, and then you just assume, okay, they'll build themselves upwards. But the fact is that she came in, I think she won a couple of matches, then just went off the radar for a while, and is now a jobber. Now is mostly seen working on main event against people like Lash Legend and losing to people who are crappy like Lash Legend. And that's just a bad position to be in. Essentially, they've already decided, okay, NXT is now different to the NXT that you were originally brought in to be a part of. So we're just going to have you here to essentially elevate people who are a lot worse in the ring than you are. But we'll just keep doing that until we see fit to release you. And I think that's pretty just a sad position to be in.
While we're on the subject of people who we thought were going to be great and have just disappointed, Josh Briggs. I remember when this dude was in Evolve and he looked like a monster, and I was like, oh, well, he's going to get signed right away and he'll be great. And now he's like the country pop equivalent of like a Trevor Murdoch. Like, what is happening?
I don't think that he's all that bad. I think that they just haven't figured out what they want to do with him yet. And
they've been pushed as a tag team relatively, so I can't really say anything negatively about that. It's not great, but not much in NXT 2.0 is great. So,
you know, I'm like, the more I'm looking at this, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm willing to give the worst to one of these people that I have on this big list of people that haven't really even done anything yet, like Dante Chen or Erica Yan.
I think it has to be someone that's actually been like featured.
Yeah, because it's like even somebody like Giant Zangier, and I'll argue even Shanky, they're not ready, and we know that. WWE just doesn't care, you know. So it's like for somebody who is brought in at the very, very beginning of the year, like a Shanky, and I mean, by now he should have gotten better. So I'm less opposed to giving him the worst than somebody like a Giant Zangier, but like even somebody like Yulisa Leon, she probably just signed like, I don't know, however many, like a couple months ago, maybe. And she's probably barely trained, and yeah, for her to not be all that good right now, yeah, I need to be a little bit more willing to wait a little bit. So there is a whole list of people, even like Elektra Lopez. I'm not a big fan of Elektra Lopez. She would be on my list potentially too. but I'm actually starting to lean a little bit more towards I might give this to Ari Sterling. Because he was an indie guy before, right?
Yeah.
So he's had time to learn how to be better. And
well, hold on.
Yeah, because he is good.
I didn't see anything great.
Anywhere he's performed outside of WWE, he's good.
And not only that, but like getting the opportunity to do flipping 630 centons onto a door in GCW isn't like he's had time to get good. He would have gotten some great seasoning with Sean and Hunter in NXT, but they went a different direction.
Well, he failed in a lot of ways as far as character goes and stuff. Man, I really hate that Wendy Chu napping gimmick. I'm gonna go Shanky. Why not? Oh, you know who? Also deserves a shout out for being on the good side? MSK. They're brand new this year.
Yeah, they were new this year.
Yeah, so shout out to Nash Carter and Wesley. They've been doing some good stuff.
And I'll say this: of all of the Indian recruits, Guru Raj probably has the best chance of surviving. And he's not bad in the ring at all. And if they do more with him, maybe he'll actually be in Raw or SmackDown one day.
I don't think he's going to be long for the roster, but I do think that he's shown off better than a lot of the other ones have. Where's Serena Sandhu been? They showed her one time, and then she's never been there ever since.
She was never employed by the company.
No? Thought that they had announced that she was assigned.
She was brought in because they needed an Indian wrestler to replace Kavita Devi.
She's still employed?
And Bailey knew her, and that was the case. I think they said they were working on a new deal for Kavita Devi.
But Kavita Devi was released in April.
Yeah.
But I thought that there was some kind of like weird thing. I don't know. Either way. Creed Brothers. They're good too. Shout out to them.
Yeah, they do well. Ivy Nile as well. A bit more jury out on her, but she looks good.
Yeah, she's got some positives for sure. That's another person to like, let's hold off on and let's see where this goes kind of deal. Let's switch it over to something else. Newcomer in some way, but not necessarily, which is the main roster call up. So there's a lot less people to go from on here. The full list of everybody. Here are the ones that are still currently on the roster that actually got called up this year. Austin Theory, Commander Aziz, because remember, he was Babatunde for one thing, and then he was Dabba-Kato for a little thing. Commander Aziz, technically speaking, was new this year. Damian Priest, Veer Mahan, who still hasn't technically, I guess, came up to the roster because he was Veer and whatever. They keep acting like he's never been on Raw, even though he clearly was. Doudrop, because she was Piper Niven in NXT UK, and then she moves over to the main roster that way. Rick Boogs, Ridge Holland, Shanky, Aaliyah, Shotzi Blackheart, Tony Storm, Xia Li, Ashanti the Adonis, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Karrion Kross, Top Dollar, B-Fab, and Tegan Knox. That's what we're working with here. So my best, I think, goes down to either Damian Priest or Austin Theory, and I'm leaning more towards Damian Priest because he's had the United States title for the majority of the year, and he has only lost something like 6 matches, and I think 3 of them have been by DQ that he created, and the other ones were like a Battle Royal that he almost won, the Royal Rumble, and a handicap match. Oh, and a tag team match that he didn't get pinned. So this guy's had a hell of a year. And Austin Theory's got, I think, a bright 2022. He's been doing good so far, but it doesn't compare to the success that's actually tangible for Damian Priest. So he gets my best.
I would agree, because of all the people that have come through for the last several years, really, Priest is one of the only that have been built and built and built, and it's just gotten better and better. And he's my only male pick not named Brock Lesnar to win the Royal Rumble.
Really?
Yeah.
To fight Big E?
Fight for the Raw Championship, whoever it may be.
Is it going to be a 3 for you're going to with him, Callum?
Yeah, absolutely. I would go so far to say Damian Priest is the only choice for best main roster call up. Because all the other ones have been middling to bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even say that Austin Theory has done really nothing of major note since getting called up to the main roster. And it's hard to even say that he's a main roster call up because he's already been on the main roster.
Yeah, technically speaking, I guess he's just back on the main roster.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that Damian Priest is the only one that's held a championship with like significant renown. Yeah, he's been the United States champion for about half the year. Doing well with it. He's had mostly great matches. He's barely lost. So yeah, he's been very well protected. I will say that based on the current trajectory, at least in the last couple of weeks, I think that the push and upward trajectory of Damian Priest will get into a very, very sharp decline in the early months of 2022. Because they're starting him on the gimmick of, hey, this guy gets crazy angry, and that's going to cost him loads of matches, and it will eventually turn him heel. And then they'll stop pushing him.
That inner Damien BS is gonna.
Yeah,
I just say that really because
but it's not great.
I can only say that because I have no faith in them. So they have like a cycle of people that they will consistently push, and I just don't know whether Damien can break into that. I hope he does, but it's hard to be hopeful.
Well, on the worst side of things, there are 3 that, I guess technically speaking, I don't know how you would constitute some of these, but, man, some of these really had a shit run this year. Some of them haven't accomplished anything at all, but that's better than some other people. Like, Aaliyah really hasn't done anything. She got on the Survivor Series team and then booted off of it. Okay.
Aaliyah should be applauded for making it to the main roster, damn it. She's been in NXT forever.
For like 100 years, yeah. Ridge Holland hasn't done anything yet, but you know what? I'd take that much more over some of these other people. Like, and look, this is not to crap on her, but if you're speaking of, technically speaking, what did they accomplish? Tegan Nox did not have a great main roster call-up. She won multiple matches that all immediately got thrown out the window as not existing, and then she got sent over to Monday Night Raw, never appeared, and got released. But hey, that's not her fault, so I'm not giving it to her. To me, it's really down.
It's the same guy.
I don't know. It could be mostly 2 different guys, I think. I do want to shout out Hit Row having a really awful main roster call-up because they just basically didn't even exist on there. But again, it's not their fault. So somebody like a B-Fab or a Top Dollar or whatever, they cut some promos and then they got fired. Okay, well, that doesn't even really count. I think it's really down to it's either Shanky or Karrion Kross. And if you go with like quality of performance, Shanky worse, but just the sheer disappointment and how underwhelming everything turned out, worst main roster call-up is Karrion Kross.
So you're going with Karrion Kross, yes?
Oh, 100%. The guy got he got his valet taken away from him. He lost his championship to go up to there. He lost on his debut. He got put in an awful new face mask and suspenders combination that everybody made fun of, including he, and then he got released. Nothing positive came out of him coming up to the main roster.
Yeah. Look, it's obviously Karrion Kross. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. That was a terrible call up, and this was well before the news of NXT 2.0 had fully formed, and they had the NXT champion on TV randomly just losing to Jeff Hardy in 2 minutes, and then he just loses the belt, and then he trades wins with Keith Lee, who's also fired, and then he's just gone. It's Karrion Kross.
Yeah, it has to be Karrion Kross is the worst because you have, as Rob says, have the NXT champion get called up, immediately loses to Jeff Hardy, and then everyone tells us behind the scenes, oh, wait a minute, it's just the start of a narrative where he's going to go on a losing streak to start with, but then we're going to bring Scarlett in, and then they decide in the next couple of weeks, that's not going to happen. Instead, we're going to make him a gimp. And then when the gimp thing doesn't work, because of course the gimp thing doesn't work, we're going to make him Sean O'Hare. And when Sean O'Hare thing doesn't work, then we're just going to release him, along with the person that we said we were going to bring up in the first place. Because realistically, I think when Vince and Bruce looked at the Karrion Kross and Scarlett package, they probably said, "Wow, Scarlett, you could definitely use Scarlett as like this generation Sable." But I guess we'll just bring this guy up as like I'm pretty sure they looked at Karrion Kross and said, "Yeah, he's the what's his name? Mark Marrows, the Mark Marrow of this partnership." And so I don't think they ever really saw major plans in pushing Karrion Kross, despite him being the NXT champion being called up. I will say that I had in my other shortlist, I had a Veer and Shanky, because I don't really see what the benefit was of giving the Bollywood boys growth hormone. Doudrop, because it's a stupid name. I don't care whether she's trying to like put a brave face on it and trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit, but it's a dumb name, and it was a dumb gimmick that she was brought under, which didn't end up working out, and now she's just being a heel with the name Doudrop, which is even stupider. And Toni Storm, because she should have been called up years ago, and should have immediately been pushed towards like women's title contendership. And realistically, she is currently fighting for women's title, but is she really? And yeah, I just think that she's lost all character, all personality. She doesn't, like, the entire feud with Charlotte Flair has been built around humiliating her, because that's how WWE books babyfaces. And yeah, it's just been a failure of a run.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, I agree. They should be doing so much better for Toni Storm, because it's not like she doesn't have it in her. It's just that they're not unlocking it.
Well, just say that, like, as I mentioned beforehand, I think Damian Priest is the only one that's had like a definitively successful call up, and Austin Theory is I guess pivoting more towards the positive, but it's still early days for him. The rest of them is just, it's all a mixture of like which one of them actually had a really good call up.
Yeah, because most people, even if they haven't had necessarily like bad things happen, it's not necessarily been good either. Like, what positives has Shotzi had? None.
Yeah.
They took away everything that made Shotzi Shotzi. It was one of the worst call-ups.
Like, she's probably going to be released in 2022, and they'll be like, "Oh, we didn't know what to do with her." And it's like, well, how about you just do what you did in NXT, because it worked, you know?
Which is funny, just like they took everything away from her that made it that, after bringing up as a tag team and not going with the tag team, and then turning her heel just to lead into Survivor Series, and then she hasn't been used since.
It's like, after bringing her up as a tag team, when she's already in a tag team with a woman that had main roster experience.
Yeah. There's WWE for you. It's how maddening this year has been. This year, even more so than 2020, has been so frustrating. Because at least in 2020, when some of these decisions were made, it was like, all right, well, you're going to do some weird, at the last minute, change the card, but COVID. Okay. You're going to fire a whole bunch of people, but you're in a pandemic. You don't know how it's going to work out. Okay. This year, there's been no excuse. It's just been complete chaos. And I got to imagine most of it's WWE based. Like, it's self-sabotage. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I don't know when to go down that rabbit hole. Let's switch over to the tag teams or stables or factions, whatever you want to, you can go with people that are just more than a duo. There's a whole list on smarkoutmoment.com, of course. You can see the ones that are currently still active and the ones that don't exist anymore, because plenty of tag teams got released this year, either in full or they split. AJ Styles and Omos are the most recent tag team that's split. They're both still on the roster, but we've had entire tag teams leave, like Breezango and the Bollywood Boys and Everrise and Hit Row. King Corbin no longer is King Corbin, but he also doesn't have the Knights of the Lone Wolf anymore. Lucha House Party's gone. We don't have Ravishing Glow because we don't have Lana. All those kind of things. They split up the Sexy Muscle Friends. Riot Squad, yeah. Where's Timothy Thatcher been? No idea.
Well, the Iconics split last year, but still they're gone.
I found it funny that every single woman that was in that gauntlet, actually every one that was involved in the women's tag team title, either gauntlet or tag team title match at WrestleMania, is no longer a tag team.
Yeah, and even one of the champions is gone.
So, on the positive side of things, though, the best ones I had written down, these aren't my picks, but they're just like shout outs. Still a big fan of Legado del Fantasma. I think that they just work really well. Of course, I love the New Day, just the way that they are, but they didn't do anything super, super special this year for me to give them the award. I do enjoy MSK. I think they're a little bit annoying in some ways, but that's just their gimmick, is just that kind of like over the top sort of atmosphere. Bloodline's got a lot of positives to it, but it's not my pick. It came down to 2, and my runner-up is The Way. I really enjoyed a lot of like the Austin Theory stuff. I think that the Index stuff worked out pretty well. I'm kind of constituting Dexter Lumis as part of this, and by default, I guess Persia Perota a little bit too. A lot of fun stuff with them this year, but it's RK Bro. Come on.
I assume Callum's going to agree with you, so I was letting him go next.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Sorry, I just got a little distracted for a second. Yeah, it's going to be RK Bro.
No arguments for super brutality.
No. Well, they'll probably fall in the list of like
they'll fall in the list of worst.
about 15 teams that I've got down in the worst category. For me, it came down to either RK Bro or the Bloodline. So, and yeah, I just think RK Bro have been the only real consistent shining beacon of light on Raw the entire year. So I can't really argue against choosing them.
Listen, this is either the Bloodline or RK Bro, but here's the part where I say Smark Out Moment is fun, and these awards inherently don't mean anything. And this last year I'll be able to do this. I'll say Undisputed Era because they were fucking great for the last 4 years, and they're the best damn faction that NXT ever had, maybe even WWE, but I'll say Undisputed Era because I can.
So on the worst side of things, we've got a lot. I have not liked this Rohan Raja, Teoman, and now it's Charlie Dempsey too. D-Family? I don't know how it's pronounced.
D-Family.
I'm not a big fan of that. I did not like the Kyle O'Reilly and Von Wagner tag team. I didn't see the point in that really, but that's not the worst. Elias and Jackson Riker was this year. That was awful.
That's terrible.
Zoe Stark and Io Shirai do not work well together. They try to do the whole thing. We have had so many RK Bro type oddball, odd couple tag teams, and RK Bro is the only one that works because it's
anybody know how to do it.
They are just like, they have the right chemistry. They know what to do. And you've got like one of the options for worst, Super Brutality, Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH. They think
right there.
That's your pick.
That's gonna be mine. Because why have you taken Rhea Ripley? You've stripped Rhea Ripley of everything that makes her Rhea Ripley, as I said to Shotzi, and you tagged her up with Nikki ASH, who at first I was like, this is great for you, this is a great character, but it inevitably became what we all feared it would become, which is just a garbage gimmick that is plucked from 94. And yes, I know Nikki believes in it, and I know she wants to do this because she wants to inspire young children. They're not giving you that chance. You don't have that audience. You're having like sub 1 minute matches on television. Everything about Super Brutality is bad. Even if they themselves are good performers and are giving their all to it, the byproduct is bad. So they're my pick.
I got some other people as well. Again, stop me, Callum, if this is your pick. I highly doubt this one, though. Valentina Flores and Yulisa Leon, because they're just seemingly an actual tag team, and they've been tagging up on 205 Live, and I don't get it at all. Jinder Mahal, Veer, and Shanky. What did they accomplish? They got their asses kicked by Drew McIntyre. So a WWE champion with two of the biggest guys on the roster couldn't beat one guy.
Well, he's got
Awful.
a sword.
My main three picks, though, unless I'm forgetting something, I mean, there are teams that I think were shit, but I'm not going to make them the worst of the worst. Like, Doudrop and Eva Marie is not on my absolute worst because it wasn't a tag team. You know what I mean?
Well, they're my pick, so.
Oh, okay, there you go.
They were a tag team because they had tag matches together, so they were a tag team. And
did they actually ever have like a tag team match?
Yes, they did.
I thought that they only ever had like Doudrop and Eva Marie together, but Eva Marie was clearly standing on the outside and never got in.
They had a tag match with.
That's what they did.
Their first loss was a tag team match when Eva got rolled up in a match they were having because Doudrop wouldn't get in the ring. Because the reason why I dislike that one together is because, I mean, they brought in, again, as I've discussed probably multiple times already on this, on these awards, they were brought in as, okay, Eva Marie is not going to actually wrestle, be more of a mouthpiece for Doudrop. But then they said, oh, Eva Marie is actually going to wrestle, and Doudrop is going to be the one that actually does the brunt of the work for them. But within a week, they were already at odds with each other because Eva Marie had called her Doudrop, which clearly wasn't her name. And then they decided that they started losing matches because they were both distracting each other and causing issues with each other. And it's just, you can tell that story, but that's a story that you tell over 5-6 months of like the gradual breakup process. Like fucking MJF and Wardlow over on AEW, it's been nearly 2 years of building that story. And it's still going. They haven't broken up yet. You can really stretch this thing out if you play it very well. In this case, like they were broken up, or they were legitimately like being demonstrated on screen as being broken up pretty much a week or two in, and just sticking around past that point. And then you didn't even get the payoff of a decent feud off the back of it because you just Doudrop beating up Eva Marie for a couple of weeks, and then Eva Marie leaves, and then Doudrop just doesn't really take anything from that experience away from her. Now she's just on the roster as a heel. And yeah, it was just a complete failure overall and a complete waste of everybody's time.
And WWE likes to complain that the fans are impatient, right? Well, they were in my honorable mentions type of thing. 3 that I was kind of debating about, and I don't really know what qualifier I'm going to use to pick which one of these 3 that I would go with, are Lacey Evans and Peyton Royce. That was actually a tag team this year for quite a while. Because to me, that was just one of those, like, you don't know what to do with them. They actively acted like they did not want to be a tag team, and not in a sense of like, well, we're trying to build a feud. It just seemed like they didn't want a team. And Peyton Royce, of course, didn't want a team with her. She wanted the team with Billie Kay. That was the whole point. But even more so, I mean, Retribution. Jesus Christ. Was it the beginning of this year or was it last year when they had Mia Yim do the whole fake seizure? It was beginning of this year, right?
Couldn't have been. Had to have been late last year.
I think it was January. I don't remember for sure.
Well, if it was January, it had to be this year because they went around January last year.
Well, I mean, just generally speaking, I think that it was like around January. I don't think that it was like October or something, you know?
I mean, Mia Yim, I can't remember like how much involvement she already had in terms because...
I think it was February onward when Keith Lee was gone.
Yeah.
It was November.
Well, he left just before the Royal Rumble.
Right. So I think that it might have been the beginning of the year.
It was last year.
In any fashion, Retribution was god awful shit. I don't think I'm going to pick them though because most of their crap was last year, and they really just sort of phased out by WrestleMania time. But I think I kind of got to go with the Robert Stone brand.
Yeah, that was a high up choice, yeah.
Because this team this year was Robert Stone with Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea, Then they got rid of Aaliyah and brought in Frankie Monet, who seemed like she was going to take it over, but she just then stuck around with Robert Stone, lost a bunch of matches, and then everybody but Robert Stone got released. Now I like Robert Stone, and I like Frankie Monet from what I had seen, and I like Jessie Kamea better when she was the other gimmick, but I thought that she shouldn't have necessarily been released either. She doesn't really do anything great, but, I think you should sort of invest in your people and kind of train them and figure out what's working instead of just firing 900 people. Everything was a failure. Every element of this was a failure. And we're at a point now where what has come out of the Robert Stone brand, Robert Stone, gimmick-wise, is a failure. And Aaliyah is on the main roster, having failed to do one thing, and it hasn't popped back up again. Everything about this just thumbs down, So I don't know if I should go with the kayfabe, that's clearly the worst team, or if I should go with Doudrop and Eva Marie, just that everything sucked, or it's kind of hard. I think I'll probably just go Robert Stone brand to be a little bit different, but yeesh, bad year for tag teams with a lot of these. Thankfully, we had some good ones like RK Bro.
Yeah, but they're reverting back to the mid 2000s era of and we're just gonna put the belts on Cody and Drew McIntyre because fuck you. It's they don't care about tag teams again, and they're starting not to care about wrestlers again. And I don't know why, because that wasn't a profitable era for them. They had John Cena, but they don't have John Cena.
They're like, yeah, we do. We have Roman Reigns. It's like, well, it's not the
phrasing of they're starting not to care about tag teams again. They haven't cared about tag teams since I think the Shield broke up last.
And even then,
fair.
That wasn't a tag team.
Yeah, but at least they had, what I mean.
Yeah.
They had tag team matches.
No, but I mean, in their mind, it was 3 singles people that they put together in 6-man tags rather than an actual tag team. Yeah, same kind of deal.
It says the New Day, really.
They look at the New Day as, I think, more of just like a merchandise machine kind of thing and all that, whereas the New Day looks at themselves as a tag team, and that might be the difference between it. Maybe that's why they're successful. Is at least half of the equation is no, we're a team. Let's try to do things as a team. And then they go, fuck you, Big E's on a different roster. Well, we got heel and babyface. Let's start off with heel. Best and worst, of course. Couple different options all the way around for these 2 different spectrums. My best overall is pretty much down to 2. It's either Roman Reigns or Bobby Lashley. I do like Baron Corbin as a heel, of course. Not going to give it to him. Big fan of Santos Escobar. I don't think that he's the best heel, especially compared to Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley. And part of me kind of wants to go Bobby Lashley here. I am leaning more towards Roman Reigns, but part of me is I don't know, maybe Lashley deserves it. So you guys might end up swaying me one way or another. Do you guys pick either of those?
I'm going to go with Roman just because Roman was better positioned than Lashley. I always fear with Lashley that they'll just drop him at any second. Thankfully, they haven't done that, and he did have a great year. But I'm more confident in the work that they do with Roman and the position they put him in than Lashley. Even though I will say, Lashley, great runner-up, had a great year.
Yeah, I think Roman is probably the stronger choice just because I think he's more consistently disliked. Because I think the main part that kind of swings it for me is that Lashley's kind of was cheered for in the build-up to winning his WWE Championship. And a lot of people were more behind the fact that Bobby Lashley was WWE Champion more than they are kind of for Roman being champion. There's more of an acceptance of the fact that Roman's champion because Roman is the guy, rather than the fact that we actually want Roman to be champion. All kinds of, oh yeah, well, it's Roman Reigns. Of course, Roman Reigns is champion. Whereas Bobby Lashley's like, oh my god, we never thought we might get to see this, and now Bobby Lashley's champion, and that's like a lot of people were behind that, especially during his feud with Drew McIntyre. A lot of people started to turn off of McIntyre as like he was last year's guy. Bobby Lashley's our guy now. So yeah, I think Roman is probably the top heel in the company.
I mean, he definitely is top heel. So yeah, Roman gets it. On the worst, we have a lot of options. We got Slapjack. We got Jessica Maya, Elias. Eva Marie is one of the main options. She might be my pick. Shanky is another bad one. Nia Jax is another bad one. I'm leaning more towards Eva Marie because more than anything, I don't think that people cared enough to boo.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that they expected her to be a strong heat magnet because she was trying to bring back the Divas era after we'd moved past that, but realistically people just stopped caring. And that's partly due to the fact that when she came back the crowd still weren't there. But even when they came back, it was like it completely fizzled out. People didn't want to see her wrestle because she can't wrestle and she can't do anything in that regard. And so nobody is particularly interested in seeing her. And so they just wanted to move on and get away with this as much as possible. I'd say there's a similar thing towards Elias this year because Elias lost a lot of like anything that he had as a previous character. The way that his heel character worked so well in like past years completely eroded away. Yeah, I'd say that I almost was going to go Becky Lynch, but Becky Lynch has actually started to thrive a little bit more as a heel character. It's gotten better as it's gone on. Yeah, but there were a load of options. I had Karrion Kross listed as well because realistically he was just a loser character that was just really middling, like really middle of the road throughout the entire time in the main roster. But even Marie, again, just a completely pointless run.
I'll go 3 for 3 and say Eva because from the moment she stepped in to the arena, she had go away heat. And it was really, really bad.
That makes 3 then, I guess. Babyface. Obviously, it's the opposite of this. The fan favorites, the heroes, those kind of things. I got some that I really wanted to shout out here. Big fan of when they were doing the full babyface, Damian Priest. He was not only pulling off being a cool dude, but he was also like, making the save for people and standing up for people. And he did this whole thing with Bad Bunny and he made it seem less like a celebrity involvement, but more of just like a natural fit and everything. I thought he did a great job this year. Big E is always fun. Gotta love Big E. Cesaro, for his worth, yeah, it petered off at the end of the year, but he was doing some really good stuff. Cameron Grimes, one of my main options. Huge fan of babyface Cameron Grimes. But I'm going to go Riddle. We've talked enough about Riddle. You know why.
Yeah, Riddle's a great option. Cameron Grimes mentioned great options. I think I'm going to keep it relatively simple, and I'm going to go... do I? Because the choices for me in the top 2 are Big E and Bianca Belair. Because they both
One of
got
those
their big,
is mine.
Yeah. Well, they both got their big moments this year in terms of like winning the big championship in front of in front of the audience, and like B getting his big Money in the Bank win and then winning it on Raw. It's just like it was a huge feel good moment, but realistically, I think that was it's mostly just his babyfaceness has been contained in those moments, and since then it's all started to go, not I would say downhill, but it's a little bit less. It's a lot more muted. I think Bianca's carried a lot stronger, so I'm going to go with Bianca as the best.
Bianca was my number 2.
I'm going with Bianca as my number 1 because she's a genuinely likable person and is a genuinely good person, and that means everything when you're talking about your top babyface.
Shout out to who was kind of in the running for my number 3. I never really picked like a number 3 rank, but possibility was Edge. Reason why I didn't put him a little bit higher too is towards the beginning of the year when he was doing the whole WrestleMania thing, he was a little bit less of a babyface. So, but yeah, I think that on the male and female side of things, I think Bel-Air definitely top babyface for the women's division. And then I just go Riddle for the men. On the bad side, man, there's another bad list. A whole bunch of them. Some of them gone already. Like August Gray. Pretty awful babyface. You got people like Ricochet who just don't amount to anything, and it's not their fault. You got the Ember Moons that I mentioned. A-Kid's got negative personality. Why? He's a guy. Like, so why am I cheering for him? Because you say he's the underdog? I don't fucking care. Have Joe Coffey beat the shit out of him or something. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, Amir Jordan, Ashton Smith, a lot of NXT UK people in particular, Levi Muir, Nathan Fraser. I don't get any of that. Talented in the ring from what I've seen, but Valentina Feroz again. I am leaning a little bit more towards Trey Baxter out of everyone.
Why?
Because that dude never gave me a reason to really cheer for him. He was just a guy, and then he was a putz because he was all like, well, I keep losing, I'm sorry, to Cora. And he got released. And I'm like, all right, why am I rooting for him? Because he's a guy again? Like, just give me something to go with here.
Well, because you didn't root for him, the poor guy got released. Congratulations, Tony.
It's all my fault.
Yeah, it's 100% Tony's fault.
Yeah,
that's right.
This guy got released.
No, that's right.
Well, sorry, Trey, or whatever his name is. What's his name on the Indies? Blake Christian? Is that it?
Yeah, the only more bland white boy name than Trey Baxter.
I want to give a shout out to Tyler Bates' new Zen character. I've hated that, so it's another one. Yeah, I'll go Trey Baxter. Why not? No, his name hasn't been brought up yet.
I've got quite a few again listed. Mostly, I've stuck mainly to the main roster, but I will say MSK.
Yeah.
Because everyone hates her.
Well,
and they're supposed to be baby faces.
So they did. And then apparently they removed the...
Yeah, they chucked out the people that were doing them, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but see...
all of the Izzy's parents and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, so just getting a couple people in the one area to boo you because they're mad at some kind of personal thing, that's not their fault,
But those people swayed pretty much half the audience
NXT.
In their matches. Yeah.
That's why they haven't done anything.
There's there's 9 people in NXT.
They cheered Imperium beating them. Like Imperium were the baby faces in their match when they lost the titles. A few other ones. Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah.
It's hard to get behind Dominic. Doudrop. Because just the whole it was just so sad watching her dance to the ring when she was a baby face, and just apparently the crowd were excited, but they had to just cut to some really disinterested kids in the crowd to try and make it seem like people were into it. Tony Storm, again, I don't think anyone's really gone behind her too much. Saray as well. Charlotte Flair was babyface earlier this year.
She was? Oh, fuck yeah, she was because of the Holy Lacey Evans thing. Ugh.
Yeah. So, and Charlotte Flair is someone who, at this point, should never be babyface. And I don't think the crowd will ever get behind her being a babyface again. But I think the worst, it has to be Jackson Riker. Because no one wanted to see Jackson Riker as a babyface. He got absolutely zero reaction whenever he was competing. And people wanted to, out of the two of them, people would be more inclined to get behind Elias, because Elias, at least at one point, has been over. And I'll say this, and I think I echo this with a few other people that I've seen commentate on this over the time. Jackson Riker, throughout his entire career, be it TNA, WWE, or anywhere else he's worked, GFW, has never been over as anything. And so probably should just get out of the business at this point.
I didn't have him on my list. I forgot about that. That was a thing just because he's on the list of the released ones. So yeah, you know what?
I don't want to say him get out of the business. I say just go to the NWA and just end it there. that type of thing. Just go to the NWA and stay there because that's kind of where you fit.
Since I had forgotten him on the list, he kind of is the definitive pick. Yeah. Because even though Trey Baxter is like, who fucking cares with the way that his career turned out? Like, not to say who cares about him, obviously, but like the character of Trey Baxter was like shit. But Jackson Riker, yeah, it was shit. And he had the negative behind the scenes stuff going on. And he got released too. So, yeah. I'm switching mine to Riker. What about you, Rob?
Just to be different, because you both have shit on Jackson Riker, and good on you, I will say the worst babyface this year for me was Bliss. Because I swear to God, she wasn't babyface for half the year. And they kept flip-flopping, and then all of a sudden they were like, well, Charlotte Flair's a meanie butt, and she's making Alexa Bliss mad, and that makes Bliss a babyface. So I'm saying Bliss.
A meanie butt?
A meanie butt. I said what I said. I know what I said.
Well, Bliss did exclusively, like basically throughout 2021, she only wrestled heels. It wasn't just the Charlotte Flair thing.
But
she
it was
wrestled
like
Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax.
She was a demonic character. There was nothing about her character that said,
But the Fiend was babyface as well.
But
Taker's been babyface pretty much all his career. Kane has been babyface a lot of times. They're all demonic characters.
But at least when The Undertaker was babyface, it was clarified. With Bliss...
Yeah, he only did things like Tombstone a Woman. That's really a babyface move.
It sure was in 2008, okay? That was a great babyface maneuver.
That whole thing with Bliss costing Fiend and...
Don't get me wrong, she's a bad character. I don't think it's incorrect to say it, but I don't think the reason is because she just switched over alignment to wrestle Charlotte Flair. It was just, it's a bad character overall. I'd say both the Fiend and Alexa Bliss could really categorize both as one. Similarly, in the same way as the Nikki ASH, because even though that character is clearly babyface, it's a shit character.
Yeah. Yeah, they should turn that heel.
Yeah, she's gonna turn heel.
So let's then finish up our list here in slightly different fashion, but we've got the best and the worst of the male and female superstar and the overall superstar. So what we're going to do here to kind of make this a little bit simpler is the way that we did it with the AEW thing. We're going to talk about the worst of both and our ultimate pick for that, because if we say everything we need to say about them, then we just go, that one, that kind of thing. So we're going to go worst of male, female, and overall, then best of all those. Worst female superstar of the year. We've talked about a lot of the names already, but here's a couple names that we didn't talk about that I just wanted to mention just for the sake of it. Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, nothing this year. Absolutely nothing at all. Dani Luna, I don't get it. I don't know why she's part of subculture. Like, it's just whatever, But none of that stuff's like as offensively bad. It came down to two for me. Nia Jax and Eva Marie. And that's a tough call. Both are gone. Both have almost no positives to talk about from this year. And which one do you weigh as more important? Eva Marie coming in, never learning how to wrestle, not getting this dewdrop thing to work, and then being gone and just kind of wasting all that time and money? Or Nia Jax, who had these awful matches with like the Charlotte Flair thing and has had this reputation for so many years and everything, and injured people and everything like that. But she's supposed to be better. Like Eva Marie, they knew what they were getting. Nia Jax, they knew what they already had, and they kept her going. So I am leaning a little bit more towards Nia Jax, but Eva Marie, if she's not the pick, she's as close of a number 2 as you can get.
It's Nia Jax. I'm sorry. Like, she's probably a sweetheart. But it's Nia Jax. She's not great in the ring. And she knows. Last I read, she joked on Twitter, if I ever do wrestle again, the opponent crippler wouldn't be a bad name, because she knows she's dangerous.
So you're picking Nia Jax?
Nia Jax, absolutely.
So there were some options. Again, I'm gonna probably just cycle around to the two that have been mentioned, mainly because I think they're the standout choices. But I had JC Jane listed.
Really? I don't think she's
she's
that bad.
I saw that one suicide dive and just thought, yeah, you just don't belong in a ring yet, or don't belong in an actual ring on TV yet. She clearly needs a lot of seasoning. Lana, to earlier in this year, it's just, I know she tries really hard, but it's just never going to work really in the ring, or at least not. It wasn't going to ever work in WWE in that regards. Mandy Rose is NXT champion. Just it doesn't feel right. Doesn't sit right with me that she's the NXT champion. There are a few other ones. Saraya, obviously, I mentioned as well, which has completely gone horribly wrong for her since she started. But it does always boil down to Eva Marie or Nia Jax. And I'm sticking to my guns and saying that Eva Marie, because it's just, at least with the Nia Jax stuff, I know she obviously ended up being released, so it does end up being a little bit pointless, but she was a champion throughout the year, so from a kayfabe sense that she did have a more impressive run. She did wrestle at WrestleMania. She did all this other stuff. Of course, it's horrible, and she has been kind of a blight on WWE for the last few years, just due to the fact that she injures a lot of people and doesn't really contribute much of anything worthwhile. But Eva Marie's thing was an experiment because she just comes into the company and it's like 6 months of completely wasted, useless television. Just that entire run just could have all been avoided, and it contributed absolutely nothing to anyone that was involved with her. Nobody benefited from working with her. No one benefited from, like, Doudrop didn't benefit from it, apart from just being called up to the main roster. And realistically, how much has that really impacted on her positively? Just from a character perspective, I'm sure she's happy being on the main roster now, but like, it just overall, it's not like anyone really cares about her or felt more positively about her since that happened. Alexa didn't benefit from their feud. Anyone else that feuded with her, just, yeah, it's completely, I would say, even forgettable. It's like, it's memorable, but nothing was good. And so I think Eva Marie is the dirt worst, the women's division this year.
Well, to wrap this kind of idea around to what I had mentioned before about how we're going to do this whole thing, the way I'm splitting my thing up is I'm going Eva Marie as the worst heel of the year, a tie for the worst female superstar of the year between Eva Marie and Nia Jax, and at the end of the day, the worst superstar of the year for me is Eva Marie, because overall, I still enjoyed more of what Nia Jax did than Eva Marie. So if your pick's the worst for the women, then, that kind of thing. But my worst of the year overall is Eva Marie. My worst on the male superstar side of things, though, I had a couple down. I had Tucker down for some reason. I guess it's the beginning of the year. Not getting the worst overall superstar, but just the worst male superstar, I went with Shanky. Because ultimately, all the matches have been bad. His character's not there. His tag team stuff, crap. Nothing's been good with Shanky.
So, worst male, I had, like, again, other people listed. I have Shanky listed, Veer listed, Jinder listed, Commander Aziz, Jackson Riker, Karrion Kross, primarily for his Raw stuff, so he won't get it because at least in NXT he was still protected. I have Shane McMahon listed as a potential. Because he didn't do anything. The only thing that he did that was good this year was get thrown miles off of a steel cage. But even that, I think, supersedes the worst. It feels bad to say this one, but the worst male of the year is The Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Is he also your pick for worst overall superstar of the year?
Eva Marie is the worst one.
Eva Marie
I was going to just build on that. Eva Marie is the absolute worst, yeah, because it's just a given. It was absolutely terrible. But in terms of Bray Wyatt, he owned, like, a guy that was one of your top drawing acts for the previous 2 years decides that, well, he comes in, he only wrestles one match in the entirety of 2021, loses it in about 5 minutes against Randy Orton, somehow getting even worse than their previous WrestleMania match with each other. And I'd probably say that if it comes down to it now, they probably have the worst pair of matches in WrestleMania history. Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt.
Oh, wow, yeah, because they had the weird CGI
worms, yeah.
bug thing, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'd say as like rematches, they're probably the worst one. But, yeah, he comes back and he's burnt up. They build it up towards WrestleMania. He gets beaten by a distraction finish, which is like just WWE's cursed way of having people lose matches. He cuts one promo about coming back somewhat differently later on and then never returns. And I think, at least with everyone else, even though they were bad, just at least they did a mixture of things. Just nothing went right for Bray Wyatt this year. It was and considering how big of a fall down it was for him from where he was positioned, to the point where he just thought, okay, this guy's he's going to come back and he's relatively untouchable in WWE terms just because of what he represents. The fact that he's now no longer with the company is just an indication of just the biggest fall of the entire year with Bray Wyatt.
All right, so Rob, your worst male superstar and your worst overall?
Worst overall is Nia Jax. Worst male, along the lines of what Callum said, but I'm going to go different and say Strowman. How the hell do you wrestle a McMahon in a cage at WrestleMania, wrestle for the WWE Championship the month after, and then get deemed not worthy of sticking around? See you later, pal. What a terrible trajectory. Because at least with Wyatt, as we've joked about on this podcast, they always drop the ball. Strowman beat Goldberg. Strowman seemed like he was on a trajectory to succeed. I think it was earlier this year that I wrote an article saying he would never work for anybody else because Vince McMahon really helped him get through some mental illness episodes. And then he gets deemed not worthy of being in the company after having matches all year. It's Braun Strowman for me.
All right, well then on the positives, round things out on a good way. We might end up all agreeing on this one. Best female superstar of the year, Bianca Belair.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'd say so.
All right, that's pretty simple.
Well, yeah, there are other people that did well this year. I don't want to just say Bianca's the obvious choice.
Yeah,
I'd say you have to also shout out Sasha Banks,
right? Because
she was the dance partner in that match. I think the difference with Sasha is the fact that she wasn't on the TV for about 5-6 months, so that obviously plays against her a bit. Bayley, unfortunately, got injured, but I feel like she was solid throughout the entire time and was the main sparring partner for Bianca once Sasha was out of the way. Raquel did well as NXT Women's Champion.
Raquel's the standout for NXT for sure. Yeah.
Dakota Kai and Io Shirai both did very well as well in their respective roles. But Bianca is the obvious choice.
Does anyone have her as their best overall superstar of the year?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, so we're all going with the guy here. My top 5 for male superstar. Stop me if he is your pick for best. And now that we know that, best overall. My number 5 was Damian Priest. My number 4 was Edge. My number 3 was Bobby Lashley.
Well, hold on. Edge is mine.
Go for it.
Edge had a tremendous year. He went coast to coast in the Rumble. He has a hell of a match with Bryan and Roman. He has a trilogy of matches with Rollins that delivered more than it had any right to. And he has gotten through this year injury-free. And honestly, we don't know how much longer we have Edge. So for me, in more of a personal way, this was Edge's year, and I'm going with Edge overall.
My number 2 might be Callum's number 1, which is Roman Reigns.
Nope.
Okay.
So I assume what your number 1 is, and I know what my number 1 is. I think that's the same.
Riddle.
Yeah, Riddle is the best, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Riddle this year, he was United States champion and Raw Tag Team champion. He leveled up in so many different ways. RK Bro's been fantastic. He got himself from a situation where it seemed like he was going to get released to, okay, actually circumstances are different and he's over as fuck with the audience. And more, I look at it and I go, man, if they don't mess this up, he needs to be WWE champion next year.
Yeah, Riddle was incredibly consistent in the ring. His character work, even though I was a bit like 50-50 about the whole super dumb aspect of it, but the fact is, him playing off Randy Orton really works. And also shout out to Randy Orton this year. I know I've always been a bit of an anti-Orton guy. I've always been a bit of an anti-Orton guy, but the fact is he's now working with someone in a tag team. And Orton does have a huge amount of experience when he's in short bursts, and he can be in actually like a tag team setting where the other guy's worked over and he can make the hot tag. I think that totally plays into his strengths. But Riddle has had great matches with pretty much everyone this year that he could have matches with. He should be pushed towards the World Championship in 2022. And yeah, I think he was a consistent highlight throughout the year. And
highlight?
Yeah. Emphasis on the high. But I feel like Roman, from a kayfabe standpoint, of course, is like the guy in the company. But as I said, and I'll just reinforce it here, it's just I'm not a fan of this title run because I don't think it's achieving anything for anybody in the grand scheme of things. Whereas Riddle at least is delivering consistent entertainment, consistently good matches, and you can kind of see that this is going to lead to a feud with Orton eventually, and hopefully he'll come out that side of that feud in a good position and be elevated towards the title. So as long as they don't fuck it up, which you never know, but in the hope that they won't fuck it up, Riddle will benefit from this year.
Riddle should be WWE champion by SummerSlam. I'd love to see it. And I do want to shout out Riddle because he is so over, and I was concerned at a point that he wouldn't be because of certain outside things, but he's so over and the people love him. And he's like one of the few baby faces the company genuinely has. So they should nurture that and, help it grow in the new year.
I'm not sure where a lot of this stuff is going to be going over these next few months. And I really I am stuck on this idea of what is going to happen with the WWE Championship this year. Because Big E right now is feuding with every viable person that he could have potentially had a match with at WrestleMania. And I just don't think that that's happening. So I'm like,
but that's why we'll get to it when we talk about it, but I think there's a very good chance that we're not going to see him as WWE champion in 2020. Well, beyond the first day of 2022.
I kind of feel like it has to change. And I mean, we are going to talk about this with our predictions. This is a weird scenario. Normally at the end of the year, we're at the time frame where this is the only video that'll go up of the series of videos, but this will be the only thing. And it'll be like, all right, well, the next time we see you guys is going to be the one to watch. And we have to do predictions for pay-per-view that's happening on January 1st. So we will be addressing that. But at the moment, I'm kind of thinking Kevin Owens wins, and it's Kevin Owens versus Edge at WrestleMania.
I would not complain.
And
that's fucking great. I would hope that happens.
If that happens, the trajectory I'm hoping for, Owens wins the title here. He drops it to Edge at WrestleMania. Edge drops it to a heel Damian Priest. And then around, I'm assuming the Survivor Series or something time frame, maybe SummerSlam, but I don't know how that really necessarily will work out. I want Riddle to beat Damian Priest. That's kind of the championships that I want to see happen this year. Unless they just, whoever the fuck knows, I don't know. But
yeah. I think they similarly have to, but yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to the whole day one stuff. But I wanted to just also there's a few other of the men that I had listed that I think deserves at least a bit of a shout out, even though we've obviously decided on Riddle and Edge respectively between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Walter and Ilya Dragunov should both get a bit of a shout out from the NXT UK side, because I think, at least from my perspective, I think they had the match of the year. and that should count something. I think Seth Rollins had a great year.
Daniel
Bell to Bell, he had a fantastic year.
Yeah. Daniel Bryan, for the short period he was there, was great. I mean, it's kind of elevated him to be like the top guy in AEW now, so it should be mentioned. Sheamus had a great bell to bell year. AJ Styles had to carry Omos the entire year. So I think he deserves at least a bit of a golf clap for that. Xavier Woods won King of the Ring. Was kind of like the most consistently featured member of the New Day due to the injuries to Kofi Kingston and Big E being a bit more like back and forth in and out throughout the year. Tommaso Ciampa, NXT champion now. And again, has been like a bit of a stalwart of the brand. It's like the one continuation over from the black and gold. And Cameron Grimes was great all year.
Yeah.
I almost, like, legitimately, he was in my top 5 because I think he had a fantastic year.
$1 million title, you know? It's championship. Still counts. So that's the WWE side of things. The best and the worst of the year. That's a full breakdown other than basically, a clip show on SmackDown, which I don't think really counts. Because, NXT tonight, who knows? We're recording this on the 28th, so maybe something crazy happens on NXT tonight. I highly doubt it. But the NXT UK episode, I think, is a clip show. So other than that, we haven't missed out on anything. And then you get to January 1st with day 1. So that doesn't count because that's 2022. But leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what you picked for best and worst. And make sure that you click on the next part, which is not technically speaking the end of the year awards in the same kind of fashion, but it is sort of kind of rebranding it a little bit here. It's not going to be like the Smack Talk Awards or the Smark Out Moment Awards, but it is the end of the year recap. We're going to talk about some feedback. We're going to talk about the picks that you guys chose for the best and the worst segment from the website / podcast of the year and all that jazz. So click on part 6 if you are on YouTube. If you are on the audio only kind of feeds like Amazon Music or Spotify or something like that, then just hold on a second. We'll be right back after that. But thank you for everybody who participates in the best and the worst side of things like this. And we'll see you with the next part.